Kevin, and on May 3rd, 2002, I arrived at the advertising agency where I worked as a copywriter, and immediately knew that I was going to be fired. The pregnant 19-year-old receptionist caught my eye and cocked her head, indicating the woman at the end of the hall. She's here. I got the message. We'd had 5 rounds of layoffs already since the dot-com bubble had burst. And normally, the head office in Boston sent the director of HR to do the dirty work. She was the one I called the angel of death. But today must have been a banner occasion, because they had sent her boss instead. I went upstairs and said to my art director partner, "Did you see who's downstairs today?" "Angel of death?" he asked. "Archangel of death." He whistled appreciatively and started packing up his stuff. For my part, I took the apparition more or less in stride. I'd been working in advertising for 5 years now, and I was burnt out. My career hadn't worked out the way I had planned, mostly because my whole reason for going into advertising in the first place was that I had always loved watching Bewitched as a child. It's true. I pictured a life full of zany adventures, big kitschy ad campaigns on TV, 3 martini lunches, the occasional flash of witchcraft. But it wasn't like that at all. The TV campaigns always went to teams more senior than I was. We rarely started drinking martinis until after 4 p.m. And instead of groovy witches, we had not 1, but 2 angels of death. By May 3rd, 2002, I'd watched 40 of my friends get canned, including the creative director who had originally hired me. In his place, the head office had put this jerk named Stu, who always wore boat shoes and a blue blazer with brass buttons. He liked to make men jump and women cry. I despised him, but what can I do? In 2002, there were no jobs for ad writers. Those of us lucky enough to have one had to cling to it by our fingernails. To quit would be the height of irresponsibility. To be fired, however, well, then it would be out of your hands. And more importantly, you would be eligible for unemployment and severance. And those were the brass rings for which we had all been reaching. I sat down at my desk and patiently awaited my fate. The minutes passed while I waited to feel the archangel's icy finger on my shoulder. But time and time again, she came for somebody else. Eventually, I couldn't put off my morning routine any longer. I poured myself a big bowl of Cheerios, cut up a banana, and poured in the milk. No sooner had I taken my first bite, however, than I heard my name. "Kevin, could you come this way?" Now I had a decision to make. I could leave the bowl of Cheerios behind, sure to get hopelessly soggy, or I could bring it with me, which seemed like it could be a little rude, but then again, what were they going to do? Fire me? That was already on the agenda. So I grabbed my bowl of Cheerios and headed for the layoff room. Now, technically the layoff room was a conference room, but since we didn't have any clients, we only ever used it for layoffs. The archangel extended her hand to shake. "Hi, I'm Carol. I'm so sorry to be meeting under these circumstances." "Oh, I totally understand." I shifted my bowl to the left hand so I could shake. "And I'm sorry to be eating cereal at a time like this. But I've recently started going to the gym, and my trainer said it's really important to have breakfast, and so every morning when I come in, I pour myself a big bowl, and I just added the milk, and I didn't want it to get soggy, you know?" I had been shaking her hand the whole time I was saying this, and I could see her going through her mental Rolodex of the reactions people might have when you tried to fire them. Fear, tears, hysterical laughter, threats, violence. Clearly, she couldn't find an entry for emphatic breakfasting. So after a short pause, She squeezed my hand with a final surge of compassion and said, "Whatever it takes." This satisfied me. So I sat down and smiled and chewed while Stu gave his speech. How it pained him deep into his soul to have to do this to me, or whatever it was that he said. Keep in mind, this is a man who had previously prefaced an assignment for a radio commercial for Bay Area Volkswagen dealers by telling us that he wouldn't be caught dead in a Volkswagen. Personally, he said, "I've been in Audis and BMWs for years." Not, "I've driven Audis and BMWs," or "I've owned Audis and BMWs." No, none of these. I've been in Audis and BMWs for years. I felt like saying, personally, I've been in pants for years. Eventually his speech ended and I went out into the hall to dance and cheer a little with the other firees. Within 3 weeks I landed a freelance gig writing junk mail at Oracle. And a few weeks after that, I heard that the Archangel of Death made one final visit to San Francisco. This time, to fire Stu. Now, you might think that the story ends there, but there's an important postscript. Because a year after all this happened, I was watching TV one day when a commercial came on that I had never seen before. In it, a young man is sitting at a desk, eating a bowl of cereal, when his boss comes over to fire him. But because this particular brand of cereal stays so crunchy in milk, all the young man can hear is the sound of crunching in his own head, as if he were chewing gravel. So when the boss fires him, he just smiles and chews, oblivious. I was stunned. It seemed too uncanny to be a coincidence. And I had written a long, humorous email detailing everything I've just told you and sent it to all my friends in advertising. I know that the email was forwarded far and wide because I got emails back from people I had never met before. I called and asked my original creative director if he thought it could be a coincidence, and he said, absolutely not. There are no original ideas in advertising. Someone saw your idea and stole it. It's not an idea, I told him. It's my life. Hey, that, does it make you angry? Are you crazy? I said. All I ever wanted out of advertising was to have a great big TV campaign, and now I've done it without even trying. It's like something that would happen on Bewitched. On what? He said. But it didn't matter. I was thrilled. Over the next year, Guy Who Gets Fired While Eating Cereal went on to have 3 more commercials that aired a gazillion times. 5 years later, a Google search still yields 10,000 results. He even has his own Facebook fan page. All in all, it was a dream come true, and it just goes to show, sometimes the best thing that could possibly happen to you is getting fired. And also, breakfast really is the most important meal of the day. Thanks.